So next up, the noon break time here, that we have a 12 to 12:15 component and interview with another group that did just an extraordinary raise over the last couple of weeks, and again was big news at JPM, and it covered a very important part of what we're seeing in digital healthcare around this. And we have with us Dr. Sheldon Elman from Esplanade Ventures, the largest digital health venture fund in Canada, based out of Montreal. And we have Maraym Nabavi from Babbly, which is a tremendous digital health technology that you're going to love to hear about. When Sheldon told me about it, I was stunned, and I can't wait to hear more about it and see it grow over the next several years, because it is transformational. And HITLAB has seen thousands of technologies over the last 24 years and tested hundreds of them in detailed published tests that you can catch on Google Scholar. And this is one that we can't wait to get our hands on and start testing. So with that, I will hand the virtual mic over to Dr. Elman. Sheldon, the floor is yours.
All right, am I good now?
Yes, you are.
During the pandemic, this is the most frequent is, can you hear me now? Can you see me now? And so again, thank you very much, Stan, for the opportunity to present this this great opportunity with Babbly. We too have been extraordinarily impressed with Maraym, the team, and the technology. And so without any further ado, why don't I say, well, Maraym, how did you get into this?
Thank you for having me. Really great to be here. So I was in 2018, I was working on a different startup. My background is in engineering. I worked at for a number of years advising Fortune 500 companies on next generation products. But around the time that my son was about 1 year old, and I'm a first-time mom, I realized that his speech and language milestones weren't coming along as they should. Long story short, it took me a year to really get an assessment and the support that both of us desperately needed. While he's talking now, and you know, it's a happy story, the time that 1 year was extremely frustrating, because I was trying to find a clear answer as to what I should be doing. And you know, fast forward, we realized that issues like this are very prevalent. 1 in 10 children has some sort of speech and language delay, and other areas such as motor skills and social skills are also their own buckets of challenges. So yeah, that's how I got into this.
And so you decided, using your great engineering skills and the other skills that you've learned, to take pen and paper, which is really what most parents or moms are using to assess their child, and go from the Stone Age to the Space Age. And you know, so just take us through a little bit as to what you've actually, how you're now using AI and what the product is, because most people don't know. But your story is fascinating, and obviously it's impactful for all parents.
Yeah, so Dr. Elman, it's absolutely correct. Parents are today given pen and paper checklists, and physicians unfortunately don't have a lot of time to do a full assessment of the child. So we rely on parent observation a lot to say whether a child is following their typical trajectory or not. What we thought is, you know, AI is really good at pattern recognition. And as long as we have a ton of data, longitudinal data on a baby, and we can compare it with age norms, we can, with some degree of confidence, we can say at least if this child is at risk of developmental delays. So the reason why early detection and early screening is so important is because 80% of the brain is developed by age 3. So we can't really rely on these pen and paper systems and be kind of blindsided by a potential risk that a child might be seeing. So what we are doing is collecting data. Today, we are relying on voice data from the baby. So literally the sounds that babies make babbling, which can tell us a lot about their brain development. Science definitely confirms that there are concrete timelines and milestones that babies meet in the first 3 years. Similar to crawling and walking, there are also milestones that we want to see by a certain age. As an example, lack of canonical babbling by 9 months can be correlated to developmental delays. So we want to make sure that we provide both parent and the healthcare professional with objective data-driven tools that they then can decide whether that child needs to be further assessed, and hopefully as early as possible. Currently, the average age of diagnosis for a lot of neurodevelopmental disorders is around age 3 or 4. And we believe that should be brought down to under age 1.
So then by taking the AI technology and the data that you're now analyzing from a baby, so basically, from what I understand, you put the AI SDK into a baby monitor or a cell phone. So when mom is changing the diaper, or alternatively, a baby is lying in his or her crib, cooing and babbling, this analyzes it. When every mother wants obviously to have, is my baby okay? And then your system analyzes it and then gives information as to, it's not a diagnosis, but it's, hey, you should be looking further because it's not hitting the milestones.
Exactly. So we know that parents spend the most time with their child and they know their child best, but we believe that AI can fill a gap in terms of, again, realizing the pattern of progression that a baby makes. So the world that we believe in, and again, going back to the first time that I came into this problem, we have all these devices in our homes. We have smart speakers, we have cameras, baby monitors are these high definition cameras pointing at the crib. But all we are tracking today, at a domestic level, is whether a baby is sleeping or not, and what is their sleep pattern like. We believe there is a huge opportunity to use the data and AI from the day-to-day activities that the baby has at home, and to, again, provide meta-level analysis to both the parents and healthcare professionals to say, we believe this child is meeting their milestones, so let's celebrate that and give parents kind of reassurance that they're fine, or potentially tell them that we think your child might benefit from a follow-up, and really to use the precious time that a physician has with a family to focus on the areas that we think they need their expertise, and not just go through a routine necessarily.
So Maraym, could you comment also on the fact that, obviously many of the folks in the audience at HITLAB today are in the United States, but babies in India, China, Africa, all over the world probably do exactly the same thing, obviously, given the opportunity to monitor them. Take us through what the global opportunity here to use AI to help children everywhere.
Yeah, it's actually quite fascinating. Children go through the exact same patterns of speech regardless of their mother tongue. So a baby that's born in a Japanese speaking family or Spanish speaking family follows the exact same patterns of speech, which is why the AI at that level can be universal. If you think about Alexa, every time Alexa is launched in a new market, the engineers have to retrain the AI on new language, dialects, accents, and all of that. Well, it turns out for infant level speech detection, we don't have that issue. So we can scale the AI to as many markets as we like, as long as, again, the timeline is pre-verbal infant development. Same thing with motor skills. When you look at crawling, the children go through the same progression with some deviation. I don't want to say, everything is very hard, timelines, but we know what those safe deviations are. And when a child falls outside of those tolerances, we want to make sure that they're looked into as early as possible.
So this is a fascinating approach using AI, which obviously in and of itself is in its infancy. And you're using this technology to grow with the knowledge as to how this child is doing, and then intervene at an earlier, the faster you intervene on a child, the greater the ability to take them to reach their full potential.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, unfortunately today, the average age of diagnosis for conditions like, it could be autism, apraxia, dyslexia is above 4 years and above. The problem with that is we're losing that golden window of 0 to 3, where the brain is at the highest level in terms of neuroplasticity, and parents can have a huge impact on their child's development, whether a child is typical or atypical. What we are seeing is parent-led intervention. In other words, educating and coaching parents on best practices has the highest rate of return. In fact, there is data that for every dollar invested on early intervention, society can get up to $17 return throughout the lifetime of that child. And I've seen that through firsthand experience, how quickly my son was able to pick up those skills. But we certainly know that that's true across the board, which is why, again, early screening becomes important, even without a diagnosis. And I see someone ask about the pediatrician, even if a child is waiting to be formally assessed, and unfortunately, in most cities in North America, wait times can be up to 18 months, which is really sad. But what we want to do is to tell the parents, if your child can be at risk of, some delay, there are so many ways that you can help them, and to coach the parent to become the main, educator and therapist, we say, for their child, and to, again, really maximize that time that they have with them at home. Because at such a young age, even if they get a formal diagnosis, even if they do start working with a therapist, it's still going to be parent-led.
For sure. So imagine the cell phones are used to capture baby's every move. Right now, 1,000 pictures for sure for the first child, firstborn, second child, and third child get much less pictures taken. But the sounds that this child is making is critically important. So the cell phone's enabled, the baby monitors are enabled with this, and so how do you see rolling this out as time goes on?
Yeah, so we are starting with baby monitors because they're kind of, already in the nursery, they're by the crib, and we can capture enough data. We don't need 24/7 audio recordings of the baby, but enough to say with a high degree of confidence if a child is meeting the milestones or not. In the future, we believe this technology will be ubiquitous, not just in hardware, but also embedded in digital health platforms. You think about all the parenting platforms that connect parents with pediatricians or parents with an occupational therapist. Well, we shouldn't be, again, going blinded in between those sessions, and parents should have the ability to track the progress that a baby is making in between those. That really helps with adherence. It helps, again, with the return they get on, whether it's them or the payer, on every dollar that's invested on the child.
And certainly dollars are important, but obviously impacting a child is so critically important. And myself being a physician, we don't have the time to say, well, what kind of sounds is your baby making? I mean, we're worried about the baby's growing and any infections or any other things that are happening. And certainly during the pandemic, this is, doctors don't get to see the patients quite as readily, and moms don't want to take them. So this is a way to use that time frame, that golden window, as you're talking about.
Yes, absolutely.
That's fantastic. And again, thank you both for joining. Thank you, Maraym, and thank you, Dr. Elman, for joining us here today. A virtual round of applause from everyone around the world.